So I mounted a giant inflatable reindeer to the front of my trike, dressed up in a Santa costume in hopes of spreading some Christmas cheer. Turns out it was a horrible idea.
Okay, bad idea.
In this video, I want to explain why it was a horrible idea in hopes of saving someone else in the future that might try to recreate something similar to this. Before we get into it, I'll save some of you guys the time.
You're going to get yourself killed, son. Once again, taking it way too far for a YouTube video. I'm gonna report you to the FAA and PETA for harassing a deer.
So this is how the story starts out. This Christmas was the first Christmas in 2 years that I have been home. I've seen a lot of people on the internet flying around trikes, dressed up as Santa, converted into a sleigh with a reindeer on front, and I thought, I have a trike now. I'd like to spread some Christmas cheer. That sounds like a fun thing to do. So I got on Amazon, I ordered an inflatable reindeer and a Santa costume. The package arrives and I got to work. First step, I took the skis off of the trike and converted it back to wheel launch. Next, I inflated the deer, and this was the first indication that this might be a bad idea. Steer's just a little bit bigger than I expected. Turns out the deer was a lot larger than it looked on Amazon. Now, the concern I started to have was what kind of aerodynamic effect will this giant deer have on my trike? The best way I can explain it is think of a badminton birdie. The badminton has a streamlined front and a lot of drag on the back, and it's meant to fly through the air like an arrow. If I put too much drag on the front of my trike, it might want to spin around like a badminton birdie. I had previously seen a video where a speed flyer pilot took a pod harness that's typically used in the paragliding environment, but brought it into the speed flying environment. It sounds like a good idea because you would think a pod harness would streamline the pilot and make him go even faster, but this pilot showed how it was actually a really bad idea. It had sort of the badminton birdie effect because he was going faster than the pod harness was intended to fly, and it wanted to spin him around into line twist. This instance came to mind as I inflated that deer and got me thinking, was this a good idea? Will I spin into line twist? I kind of evaluated everything and decided it was worth a shot, but I was gonna dial things back a little bit and make sure that I didn't put myself in too much risk. More on that later. So I got together some PVC, some zip ties, and some black Gorilla Tape. I headed down to the airport and assembled everything, and turns out it actually was pretty sturdy. So here's the precaution I decided to take. Knowing that there might be the potential that there's too much drag in the front of my trike, I decided I was gonna fly really low. There's this kind of weird spectrum of risk as you gain altitude. At a very low altitude, you're close to the ground so you can come in for a landing quickly and safely. Much past that altitude, you're kind of in a danger zone where you can't deploy a reserve and you're too high that you have enough energy to kind of build into a wing over and hit the ground really hard. But once you get past that into a higher altitude, now you're at an altitude that you have time and you can deploy a reserve. The point is, the middle ground is the danger zone. By staying in the low level, I was avoiding that danger zone. So on to the takeoff. I got everything set up, wing laid out, nice little breeze to take off into. I inflate my glider and I start rolling down the taxiway. Everything felt perfect. I just took it slow. And once everything felt perfect, I rolled on power to take off. Now everything felt good at this point, except I was a little bit surprised that my nose came up a bit. This was kind of another error on my part. I had to estimate where my hang point would be with the reindeer out front, changing the balance of the trike. The smartest thing to do would have been to do a hang test. I messed up on that. I should have taken the time to do it. Now this is important because a nose high altitude reclines the motor and actually increases the effect of the torque. Even though I was a little nose high, everything still felt totally fine.
Woo! Holy sh! We're doing it!
So I decided to go into my first turn. I was gonna do a right-hand 180-degree turn and kind of try to fly the traffic pattern. As I rolled into this turn, I started to realize that I was crabbing sideways, and it was a little bit deceiving at first because I was just looking at my ground track and feeling that it was coming at me sideways. I decided to confirm by glancing up at my wing, and I saw that I was pretty much 45 degrees offset of my wing. This was kind of my worst fear. To be honest, for a second, I felt like I might just be crashing. What I believe happened was the torque on the trike makes the trike roll to the right and it points the nose left. As I entered that right-hand turn, the torque offset the nose to the left, allowing the wind to hit the deer on the right side, and it started to act like a sail and pull me sideways. Like I said, this felt really sketchy, and I decided to land immediately.
Okay.
Okay. Bad idea. That was almost fucked. No bueno. No, that was getting all sorts of fucked.
That it was like dragging you a lot?
No, I was sideways. I looked up and the wing was going that way and I was going that way, and it was very hard to distinguish what was happening. So I got off power and just flared. Maybe I can make this a what not to do video.
Yeah.
My deer's too big. Sorry, Mr. Deer. You are earthbound because you tried to kill me.
So here's the lessons I learned. First one is obvious. Don't mount anything ginormous that's gonna create a lot of drag to the front of your paramotor or trike or anything. The whole badminton birdie metaphor is 100% true. My buddy Pat actually did a similar thing where he dressed up as Santa on his foot launch paramotor and had a reindeer out in front of him. And at first I kind of laughed because his deer was like really small. But then after the fact I was like, that was a smart move, Pat. His setup worked perfectly. His deer was small enough that it didn't affect the aerodynamics, and being on his foot launch unit, he could mount it closer to his body, which decreased the leverage. The second lesson I learned was managing risk, and I think I did that successfully in this situation. Although it could have gone horribly wrong, it didn't because I was one step ahead. Had I gone straight to 500 feet in a straight line on my initial takeoff roll and then turned, I would have been in a lot of trouble. Luckily, by staying low, there wasn't enough time to have anything get too far out of hand because I could just roll off power and be on the ground immediately. I think managing risk like this obviously comes from experience and paying attention to other people's mistakes. The best example is that speed flying video I had previously seen. And that's why I kind of want to share my mistake so that other people can learn from that if maybe next Christmas they try to fly a giant reindeer on their trike. The whole thing kind of goes full circle, sharing your mistakes so other people can learn. That's all I've got. If you enjoyed this episode, please drop a like below. And if you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by checking out our Risky Biscuits Co. merch down in the description. We have brand new colors available, just released, and we restocked a couple of our very popular designs. Check those out below. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, hats like this one, and ozone wings. If you're getting into the sport or upgrading wings, hit me up. I'll help you out with any ozone products. Aside from that, I've got a couple more episodes to make here in New Jersey, and then it's off to Florida and the Toy Hauler for a sweet adventure, so stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Fly safe, have fun, peace.
You had one job. You had one job.
You, Mr. Deer!